Welcome back into all you non-believers. That score that you saw on the break screen is true. Dignitas is currently up 1-0. We talked a little bit about what we saw in the game, and mostly it was, credit to Dignitas. Kirei made some really good choices early game, and then, Yamano, you were giving that credit to the Baron call. Like, they finally decided that they knew how to close games out. They had to take risks, and they did it properly, and they won the game. But now, going into game 2, of course, we have to look at the previous part of that game when it comes to picks and bans. I know you guys were talking about it earlier. I mean, Pirate, the picks and bans, we discussed a little bit for game 1, definitely in favor for Dignitas.
Yeah, it seemed a bit outdated on QG's side, and we talked about how maybe they haven't quite adapted to the patch yet, maybe they're not really ready for this competition, and to be fair, they weren't necessarily expecting to come in since they had to fill EDG spot, but at the same time, you have to be prepared for that kind of thing, and they picked very much for comfort. Didn't really pan out.
That's true.
I feel like when it comes to QG, it's like the win condition, it was like classic QG. Give up the early game, and that is how they play. Play into that mid game and to that late game where their composition was stronger. Because in reality, the win condition of the Dignitas roster, it was lacking because it was all about the Fura split push. But in reality, in a 1-4 situation, the QG lineup is definitely better because they have the Nidalee for poke, and of course Dignitas does not have an engage, and the Lissandra with the teleport can support the Fura with the split push, so there's no clear win condition unless you get a huge advantage in the early game. That's why I emphasize the Baron so much, because it clearly won them the game.
Yeah, we talked about it. I think the mistake number 1 was just banning Lulu on the side, because you gave away Elise and you didn't get anything strong in return. I mean, of course, you got the Trundle, but you have 2 picks. Why would you not leave it open and then just trade something? I mean, give away the least. You get Lulu. Lulu Trundle seems like a pretty solid pickup in my eyes. And if they can actually, I mean, we have to see how they do it on blue side. Maybe they get the stronger jungle matchup now. Maybe they ban out the same jungles and get the first pick Elise. And then we can see Swift, what he can do on Elise. But yeah, we talked about it. Stronger jungle matchup is probably going to dictate the flow of this tournament. And yeah, Elise did super well.
Yeah. It's like, I feel like Nidalee into Elise, I don't like it, because Nidalee, I feel like it's very reliant on the early game. And if the enemy side has a stronger jungler, it kind of fades Nidalee away. And with that in mind, it's like, if Swift, as you say, gets a stronger jungle match, I can imagine a completely different game, because Swift went into the battles as if he has a stronger jungle matchup.
Yeah, to be fair, the jungle matchup, it was more pathing error than jungle matchup at all, because what happened in the mid lane, yeah, that should not happen, what DoingB was doing. So we will see what happens this game, but straight picks and ban.
Yeah, already a little bit well underway, and in terms of names that we're seeing on the ban list, nothing too surprising, but QG just not wanting to play that Elise at all. They're taking that out.
Yeah, I mean, it's looking really, really similar. This time we've got the Lulu ban also by QG, but it's on the blue side.
Ryze is still up. It should probably be banned right now, because... Okay, Dr. Mundo.
Oh,
I would first pick Ryze here.
You have to.
Yeah. Ryze needs to be first picked here, because you can still put it mid and top lane, and there's not really a good counter pick right now in the top lane left. I mean, what are you going to play into Ryze, top lane?
And it's also, if you give up Ryze from blue side to red side, you can flex it to last pick, because it's so good in mid and in top. You have to pick it up right now.
Also,
go full avatar.
Of course, Kindred and Elise both are banned right now here. Mundo banned. So the jungle pool is kind of opening up. Lee Sin next on the list, but then you have Rek'Sai as a cover. Rek'Sai into Lee Sin has always been really good for Rek'Sai because of the unborrow. You can unborrow the second Q proc. You have the utility from the Tremor Sense. I really like playing Rek'Sai into Lee Sin, so the jungle matchup is completely irrelevant, and you should just pick Ryze right now in the first rotation here.
It's like the good old days, Gragas Rek'Sai every game.
That was so boring. That was so boring, please.
Well, after much thought, the Ryze is going to come through. Thankfully, I was getting a little worried there. They took so much time. I was like, oh my goodness. But
just using their timer.
Yeah, that's true. It's good to make use of that.
What will we do here right now? I think one pick that should be picked up right now in this next rotation for Dignitas should be Trundle, for sure. And maybe they roll with like a Tristana again. That has been working out fine for them. You don't have to pick jungle right now. Maybe you can pick up Rek'Sai right now to get like a decent matchup.
I feel like something that they should go for is, of course, the Rek'Sai is a possibility. The Trundle is very important in my eyes as well. But I think on red side, what you should aim for is that flexibility. If you manage to pick up something like the Sandra, just fine into the Ryze.
Yeah.
And with that in mind,
I think I like the Rek'Sai pick, but I do not like the Alistar pick here. Why would you, right now, why would you lock yourself into like such a weak matchup already in the bot lane?
It's like
laning is so important. You can't just lane swap anymore.
It's like if you blind pick a support, you better pick something that always does good in a game. It's like something that scales into the game. Alistar, sure, does
yeah.
fine, but why don't you just commit completely, pick the Trundle?
Well, the Thresh was good too. I mean, last game Jesse actually really impressed on that, and it's just you know, it's never going to get banned because it's just a utility-based thing like Lee Sin.
I actually talked to Forgiven yesterday about the Trundle, and he said Trundle is actually the new Alistar. The pillar actually works the same as the Alistar combo. The only thing is you don't have to commit. Plus, Trundle is like a flex pick, so I think Trundle Rek'Sai would have been like a perfect first rotation here. Just flex into the top lane. I mean, sure, Ryze is gonna go top lane maybe. Not the best matchup, but you still have like this flexibility. Make the enemies think. Like make their life harder in the champion section. But Alistar's locked in already. I mean, it's kind of good against Ryze because you can knock him away once his thing does, like, procs the passive. But same for Trundle. The pillar is really good against that.
I mean, overall, it does seem like Dignitas is trying to play it a little too safe and waiting for all the cues they can get about mid and top before playing the mind game themselves.
And it's like, looking at QG's side, already they are picking a very heavy magic damage composition. Magic resistance is going to be super efficient in this game. And with that in mind, of course, on blue side, in most scenarios, you will have to blind pick the mid lane. And Swift shows once again that he has a lot of confidence in his mid lane.
You flex the Ryze. Why would you give it away that you put it in mid lane already?
Yeah, I mean, it's hard. The mind game was over after one phrase, and so now suddenly Dignitas kind of just picking that Alistar doesn't seem too bad, because now they're like, okay, now we know both.
You should just pick the support here right now against Alistar. Like, you can pick Tam Kench right now. You can pick Bard. Bard has like the perfect matchup into Alistar if you want to play it. I mean, of course, Nidalee into Rek'Sai is one of the best matchups in the game for Nidalee, because Rek'Sai can't do anything. Nidalee can just poke them on auto. Like, you can just do everything what you want with Rek'Sai, but...
Here's what they're doing.
Okay.
Cowball delivery.
Yeah, that's
This is not CLG, man. No, it's like not CLG, man, but we'll see. Yeah. MF, good pick, I think. Right now on this current patch, we talked about Thunderlord, MF, Emax in the lane. Deals 500 damage every 30 seconds, of course with the Orianna.
Now, why wouldn't TNT seeing that pick the Trundle? I mean, it's an easy way to interrupt it. Do you think they're just not maybe confident in picking it with the Braum?
Well, TCT, picking that Braum already.
I think Trundle would have been perfect. It's like 3 champions, Orianna, NMF, get very easily countered by the pillar. Also Rek'Sai, you can just interrupt his E, the tunnel, with a pillar. So the pillar would have been really good here in that game already. Plus, it synergizes very well. It sets up Ryze perfectly. It sets up Nidalee Spears perfectly. It gives more zoning with the Victor. So I think, this pick, I don't really like this pick.
This tells me they're really not ready on this patch.
It is like, what I think about the Braum, before we go into this Twitch pick, it is like,
oh god,
Braum
actually good.
It is like, Braum is completely fine, but I agree that Trundle is a lot better because Braum is scaling very well, does good into the Alistar, but of course, I have to agree with you guys that Trundle is definitely the stronger pick here.
I actually like Twitch right now on this patch. I think he's a very underrated AD carry, because what you can do, like with the way this his kit works right now, you can do so much, especially like the Hurricane and, for example, Ghost. There's like a lot of different Twitch item builds right now that favor him, but I actually like Twitch right now, and I want to see how it works out.
Okay, so
but
Twitch...
Not sure against MF. Misfortune just puts down an E, 60% slow. It's like the easiest gank I've ever seen. Like, bot lane is gonna die 24/7 basically, right?
And the Trundle on top of it for Dignitas.
This is going to be very
literally on top.
It's like right off the bat, I feel like the idea of both sides have been completely shifted, because right here, it's like the matchup on top, I feel like it's favored towards Ryze, because what is the Trundle going to do into a Ryze? And then on the bottom, I feel like it's kind of even. So right now we have everything shifted around. QG have the early game jungler in my opinion, and it's all about them controlling the early game this time around.
Okay,
to be fair, I don't know what I would pick if I would be like in a situation with Lulu being banned, Malphite being banned, Dr. Mundo being banned. What do you pick into Ryze top lane right now? What's like left?
It is like, the idea a lot of people have when it comes to Ryze is pick something that can commit into it and kind of snowball him out of the game on top. It's simply something like Irelia, something like Jax, something that can supply the ganks that you have with Rek'Sai in this game when a lot of the junglers have been banned.
Okay, so overall then would you say things are looking a little bit better for QG? Under the assumption that Swift doesn't completely kind of disregard himself in the game?
I mean, I see like so many mistakes in terms of picks and bans. There's like so much that QG could have done better to put themselves in like such a good winning position. But yeah, I mean, I like Dignitas.
It is like what I'm predicting now from QG's side. I mean, from Dignitas' side is the fact that Magic Resistance is going to be so efficient. They're going to buy the Abyssal, the Split of Visage on Trundle, and the Aegis, and good luck killing anybody when mid-game hits.
All right, so Dignitas may be very well on their way towards a 2-0, ladies and gentlemen. After a quick break, we'll come back right into Summoner's Rift and find out if Dignitas really can close it out 2-0.
Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, to IEM Cologne, and that was an intense first game in a tournament for Oscurin where junglers are so highly storied. We talked about 4 of them in such a big spotlight, and Kirei was not one of them.
Really wanted to hit on is new Dignitas, new expectations, and Kirei in particular has shown up massive. We'll see if he can do it back-to-back again. This is a best-of-3, so game, set, match for Dignitas, and they could 2-0 Xiaogu.
For Xiaogu to bow out at this stage of the tournament, for many, would possibly be unthinkable. And it is this maverick lineup from Dignitas here that are here to show them. So we are onto the riff, ladies and gentlemen, for game number 2. On the blue side, it's going to be Xiaogu trying to keep themselves in this tournament, and Dignitas hope to try and catch that wave, or at least continue to ride it towards victory. I mean, you know, we talked about the champion select, a little bit weird, some things that maybe shocked you. I mean, the Twitch, of course, though, being picked up here, and we said Papa Smithy is going to be ecstatic.
It's unfortunate that Papa Smithy's not on the cast for this one, because he was just like, if there's one thing that he was nailed on, he's like, Twitch is good. Twitch will come out. Twitch is good. And here we go. TNT has that Twitch. Now, the cool thing about Twitch is that his power has kind of been moved around before. Before, it was pretty much only on the rat-a-tat-tat, the spray and pray, his ultimate, because you're coming out of that, you have the attack speed bonus, you got your line damage, and that was kind of Twitch's moment to be God. In this new Twitch, his power has kind of been moved around a little bit on his ambush. Now, when he comes out of his ambush, he gets the big attack speed steroid. He's able to kind of reset that. So it gives Twitch this ability that he's able to kind of proc his steroid a bit more reliably, and to kind of spread his damage around the course of a team fight. But we do have a bit of a lane swap going on here. Apollo and Jez actually looking up top, and I don't know if this is because they're predicting that TNT and TCT will try to look for the lane swap, or if maybe they just want to get the hell out of Dodge.
Well, I mean, the way that the early game now proceeds, a little bit harder to delve deep and put those lane swap indicating wards right down, of course, just in between the inhibitor and inner turrets. So, I mean, you know, Xiaogu are going to have no idea about this, and it's going to be Yesis and Apollo starting up top side. Kirei and Smitty J will roam together, of course, for at least a moment, just to work on that Gromp. Smitty is straight off towards that bottom.
Yeah, actually taking the camp and, you know, spending some extra time not showing themselves. TCT and TNT have now shown themselves into the bottom side, so Apollo and Jessis have full knowledge that they are walking into the 2v1.
For that exact reason, you can see Smitty J has just gone back a little bit to assist Kirei for a moment. It's going to be Orianna versus Victor in that mid lane here as well.
Actually, Shifter taking Q level 1 as opposed to the E having that shield and not trying to outtrade Doinby with the command attack as well as the auto attack from Orianna, as opposed to trying to meet him for shield.
Aggressive play here coming out from Shifter. Maybe not something we really would have anticipated. Important to note, of course, not teleport from that Orianna. The Ignite here. potential for those fights to go in his favor.
And you know, the desk said it themselves when they were kind of talking about the composition that Xiaogu put together. It looks dated, or at least it looked dated last game. Again, running that double teleport. My problem with double teleport is when it came into Rise for the meta, we saw that particularly at Worlds. Of course, we're on a very different patch, is that Victor doesn't get a lot out of double teleport. He teleports down, he's very immobile, he's very fragile. He can kind of unload his burst damage, but he doesn't have, you know, any sort of dash to put himself back into safety. So when he teleports in, he's there and he's incredibly frail. Now, for Doinby, teleport works perfectly because he is a supportive style mid laner. He has the highest kill participation of any player in the LPL season. So expect to see him kind of follow around Swift. I always call him the secondary support of the team.
It's always he's the support for Swift, essentially, on Xiaogu. Kirei heading bottom side here. TNT's on his own. He's got to be careful. There comes that pillar of ice. It's going to be a flash away from TNT, and it is just going to be enough to get himself out of that one.
And there's just so much kill pressure right there, forcing that that flash out. Likewise, Smitty J has a relatively deep freeze next to his tower, so Kirei can definitely look down bottom as soon as really that pillar is back off of cooldown and look for a pretty easy kill. Do you think Rek'Sai knows that everyone can see her when her fin's up?
Yeah, I don't know. It's like, I don't really see like what the point is of burrowing, really. And the friction, to be fair, like of you like pushing through the ground like that, I don't see how it's any better to be underground.
I just imagine that Rek'Sai thinks she's like really slick, like she's down there like no one can see me.
Dude, and everyone just sees her walk past with a very unimpressed look in their face, like, we know exactly what you're up to there.
No, not the unburrow.
Everyone just takes one big step back and she pops up in the middle of nowhere. So, Shifter now, in that mid lane, like you said, you know, looked like he fancied some aggression earlier on in the piece, maybe just hoping maybe Doinby characteristically maybe getting a little bit too big for his boots or too far forward, but it does look like...
Well, Xiaogu will always pressure forward because, again, you have Swift as your jungler. You need to create these pressure points in your lane to open up time for him to invade the enemy jungler, so he has support that moves forward. Now, that punished Doinby last game when Kirei made a fantastic gank early. Now, Kirei was spotted out kind of in that bottom side or not because he got spotted out by the gank, now spotted out by Swift.
So this is perfect for Swift. He knows he has the advantage, but Kirei just able to get back towards his more defensive zone quickly enough.
Like Yamato said, Nidalee has a great matchup into Rek'Sai right there. So Kirei kind of poking his head in, using the Tremor sense to kind of find disaster before it struck. Does manage to walk back out, but Swift is not being deep warded on like he was last game, and a much better start for Xiaogu.
Important to note as well that Smitty J is actually able to do some decent farming here in that bottom lane. I mean, I'll be honest, this lane swap, ostensibly, the result of this actually isn't really that clear because all the lane is actually still having the even CS there. It's just obviously less, maybe less pressure, of course, to that Twitch in the bottom side, but we've seen attempted ganks going down there already.
I was always a big fan of the lane swap. I'm glad to see it kind of come out on the new patch. I was kind of curious, you know, there's so many powerful kind of 2v2 and 1v1 matchups that I thought the players would kind of fall back on. You know, I know I can beat this guy with this matchup, but we do see the lane swap. Now, Twitch, there's a lot of kill pressure, like we said, especially because he doesn't have his flash. He's not known for a strong lane phase. I mean, obviously, you have a range champion versus a melee champion, but still has to be pretty safe right there. He does have the added security of his ambush if he's able to get into stealth in time to kind of walk back to his tower, so the elongated lane isn't that punishing to him since he doesn't have his flash, but... Really going to be curious who's going to win out here. If Twitch is able to farm up safely enough without his flash and he's able to be a force to reckon with in that mid kind of late game period, or if Miss Fortune's really going to take off, and what kind of max that we're going to see from Apollo, if it's going to be that E max.
That's right, something we've definitely talked about now with the Masteries being an issue, but there's another Pillar of Frost and TNT. He can't use that ambush now because he's being hit. It delays the proc of it, but a teleport's going to be coming in towards his bottom lane, and Swift is already there. V is going to be in hot pursuit, and Kirei, fortunately, can just burrow his way out of harm.
But this is so obvious that Dignitas are going to look for this weak point. I think that was really well coordinated by Xiaogu. Now, in the end, Dignitas do get the advantage here because they're able to pick up the top tier tower. That's incredibly important. But the idea of Xiaogu, you know, they're a 5v5 team. It's all about their teamwork. TNT says, my flash is down, they're going to gank me, I'm going to pressure forward now, and I better have backup.
Jesse's looking for TCT. Winter's Bite does connect and slows Alistar up just a little bit more, but Dignitas are more than happy to just move the battle line forward now as that pressure is starting to mount in the top side. And even Shifter is able to go down, but do note Victor isn't too far away. He thought about rotating down, but both teams able to sniff each other out and they'll all head back their separate ways.
Xiaogu will need to respond to this top lane, although we do see that Jesus is pulling out, probably to join his team somewhere else onto the map, or possibly they'll move Apollo and Jesus down towards the bottom side and try to work on another free objective. Again, the meta is still very structure-focused because it's the only source of global gold.
Oh, Shockwave being used there towards Doinby. Shifter coming forward, he flashes out of the gravitation field. He gets the first blood with command attack, and that Orianna is off to a good start.
And this is something that the lane swap really opens up, is it actually isolates the mid lane. So Shifter sees where everyone is on the map. It allows him the aggression to make a play like that, to flash forward underneath a tower.
You can see those junglers being pulled left, right, and center. It was all about Shifter there in that mid lane. Just a solid, dependable player. It's what people have been saying about him. But he's able to, on his own, carve out that advantage to start things off here. I mean, it definitely hasn't been a bloody game in the early stages here, but you can see Dignitas are already posturing themselves for a positive trajectory into the mid game. They already have that tower as well, and a slight gold lead as well.
I really want to quickly touch on Shifter's itemization since he went for the Chalice. So again, we kind of talk about this slot, Spell Thieves being really strong, Spooky Ghost. He's going for the MR here, and that makes sense because if you look across Xiaogu's team comp, you've got magic damage out of Ryze, magic damage out of Swift, and magic damage out of Doinby. So I kind of like the adaptation here, although I still think that Spooky Ghost is an incredibly strong item.
Bullet time being used there, but Unbreakable being thrown up by TCT, and still he takes a heck of a lot of damage in that bottom lane. Apollo and Jesse is just, it's a pressure game for these guys right now as well. Not maybe feeling too inclined to try and beat the heads of QG in. They just want to force them back, get in their heads, and continue to push up that battle line. But here comes Kiray up burrowing towards the mid lane, and that Maverick of a jungler is going to get involved in that kill. He's caught in the gravitation field, but he'll be able to get out safe.
Doinby is just getting, frankly, outclassed by Dignitas right here. Shifter getting the 1v1 kill, and again, Dignitas have identified the weak point on Xiaogu, and they're continually punishing it.
Jesse's now looks to come in for the backside as well. Doesn't get the pulverize. The flash from Swift was just quick enough. He might want to try and return some damage now as Jesse is forced to use a little bit of a heal to back away from that one now. Swift is just going to spread some damage. Look to try and at least harass here for TCT. Looks toward the back line as well. He's in no man's land. He's caught out. It's LMQ more all over again, and the fight might continue to go from there. V gets in towards Jesse's. It's an ultimate being used there. Unbreakable Will might keep Jesse's alive for a little bit longer, but he's going to be surrounded and picked to pieces.
Stone mastery there, keeping Alistair alive for so long. Wow. That damage reduction is pretty real right there, but I have no idea what Xiaogu were thinking. TCT, formerly known, like you said, as LMQ Moore, was way too far forward without any sort of support. Doinby was already dead. You didn't have a 5v5 even if you wanted it.
Don't know what he was looking for there. I mean, we've seen TCT maybe opt for a little bit more of a passive style, favouring Janna in the summer of LPL, and we saw that the defensive role kind of suited him here, but this is a throwback to his days on LMQ where he was playing those engaged supports, and it happened in the same way then as it did now.
And this was the question, you know, what form of Xiaogu is going to come out? They weren't suited for this meta, and it seems that they have the exact same weaknesses that they showed in the summer split of LPL, a failure to execute on the early game, and Dignitas doing a beautiful job punishing.
Apollo for some reason, well, TNT for some reason thought he caught Apollo there, but now they can pressure back a little bit more. Remember that Misfortune doing bonus damage, hitting different targets with each auto attack. That's what Love Tap is doing.
And that's the beauty about Misfortune, is that her trade potential is so strong, particularly on the Emax Misfortune, just because the distance is so long that there's almost no way that you can trade with it, especially if she gets the proc off of the Thunderlord's Decree.
Glacial Fisher does come out here, and Jesse seems the one that's being caught. We're even going to see the Rat-a-tat-tat coming out from TNT, and it's a fairly easy secure on that kill, but a lot of resources were committed. You can see the V is bottom side now as well, but how do Dignitas respond?
There's no play for cross-map. Unfortunately for Dignitas, a lot of them were back into the base, so they're not able to trade that pressure for anything, but Xiaogu's calling card, when do plays happen on the map, at least 4 or 5 people are there. So staying true to the old Xiaogu, but that failed them in the first game, and it hasn't looked good in the second game.
I mean, it's been quite some time since we first saw IMG sort of debut at Worlds, and it was the gang squad was the kind of idea with them as well. Going as a
Did
group.
You just throw back to OMG?
That was a throwback.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. Well, that was what everyone was talking about. It was almost a buzzword, so much so that someone said that, you'd be like, yeah, well, I still can't tell if you actually watch Worlds or just heard about it, because that was such a big deal with what IMG were doing there. And again, you can still see maybe a different permutation of that.
Xiaogu are not a skirmishing team, and that's why I think they're not suited to the meta. I think skirmishing is far more important because it's about snowballing. It's also fighting over vision control, just because, again, you don't have the stealth wards, you have the pink ward, so it's a very clear vision. So the time that it takes to kill a pink ward, you're setting up the potential that someone's going to come along, they're going to skirmish you for it. They have, across 5 members, every single player on their team has over 75% kill participation. That's almost unheard of on a team. And that just says, when they do something, they have to do it as 5, and I think that punishes them on how quickly these games are going on. You think about 5v5, you really get 3 out of them in kind of the old school version of how League of Legends was played. 70% of the game is played before ChowGu are able to get all 5 up and running.
That's exactly what they're going to be looking forward to doing here, or at least hoping that they can get to that stage. Smitty J able to quite nonchalantly walk away from that one there as well. And this opens things up in the bottom lane for Dignitas here. I mean, showing 80 carry and support in the top. Not really sure what they were going for here. And there it will be the 3rd tower to go across to Dignitas. Still none have been found for ChowGu.
Really securing their gold lead here. But, you know, Dignitas, they fumbled last game and kind of some clean mid-game decision-making. This time around, they do have more mid-game power spike with Misfortune as well as Oriana, and it looks like they're going to continue this trend.
Opening things up with some damage on towards V. That's just his bit time. He lands it. No way he was getting out of that one. Shifter has to back away from the Chaos Storm, but it's just not going to do enough damage. Doinb has to be careful here. There are 4 players from Dignitas, but they respect the tower, and they respect the possibility of Swift and Co. getting on site.
I will never find it strange to call mid-game 13 minutes now. That's just absolutely absurd. It is really important to note, you know, why are these towers falling so quickly? Now, the inner towers are the weakest that they have ever been in League of Legends, and likewise, because there's more ambient gold in the game, people are getting... Kire steals the red buffalo there with a nice Price Seeker. People are getting stronger items earlier. Likewise, AP carries doing more damage to towers, a slight change there. Now, when you have a double tower down, that's when the minions really start to take effect. So this is going to get really scary for ChowGu. But again, onus is on Dignitas. You have the lead. Make decisive mid-game shot calling. Close this one out.
Important to note that Dragon hasn't really been something that Dignitas have been super interested in contesting at this early stage. Of course, that first one did go over towards ChowGu there.
Frankly, until you give Dragon, you know, some sort of incentive, the first Dragon is always going to be the most important because you have a scaling...
the percentage.
Exactly, percentage. And again, because people are getting more items, it's relatively strong. But hold on, V caught.
And he's probably going to be taken down as well. There's a teleport coming in. It might be a little bit late. Doinb, why? He's going to go for a bit of damage, though. Kirei's looking low, but the Unburrow comes out, forced to flash away for Doinb. And there is Smitty J. He's on top of him. He gets the finish off there. And Swift is trying to return some damage too. But will he go down? You better believe it. And Smitty J gets through that one. It's a triple kill for the Trundle.
And this is exactly what I was talking about. Victor having that teleport. He is so reliant on his flash. He teleports in. He's incredibly fragile. He's incredibly frail. And Dignitas punish so hard on that. There's no one to respond to Jesus and Apollo pushing down another tower for free.
ChowGu just backing themselves so much there. Thought Doinb would maybe cancel that teleport or something, but he went in, tried to create an advantage, and here is that fight again for you guys.
Just the Chinese aggression. So you have beautiful, I'm not going to call it CC lock, but effectively pillar displacement into unburrow displacement. Doinb immediately teleports in, really careless on his positioning right there. He actually walks into melee range and then is forced to flash back out. And by this time, Swift's not only fighting a massive Smitty J and Kire, but he's also fighting in a horde of creeps.
Like, it was a 3v2 for ChowGu, but it was a staggered 3v2. They never had everyone there at the same time, really. Very smart play from Dignitas, and that is just a big mistake, of course, for ChowGu. The real question is how that's going to impact them now. Rift Herald going to be taken away, hopefully towards the right person this time. ChowGu just maybe have to look for some answers here as well, or just solidify their position, because that was the sign of what hurt them very much in the last game. And the gold lead now starting to blow out to about 5k.
And they've now been given the tool to really start pushing down these towers. The fact that Kire has the Baron buff. So put it in the lane, start pushing it down, maximize your lead, get this in down.
Smitty J would be very, very happy now. Of course, 5-0-0. And yeah, I'm Iceborne Gauntlet being picked up for him as well. Does have a Spectre's Cow. He's looking tanky. And all over the board, those items now coming out and being a factor. We hardly have time to talk about them because these guys just want to fight every couple minutes.
I know it's the new patch, and I really want to kind of really dive into it and get into the meat of it, but the games are going so quickly. No, hold on. See if they're going to look for an engage. I think they're just going to take it and walk away.
Oh, Swift. Oh, the Shockwave is going to miss, but the Bull Time will try and follow up. TCT comes forward, though. He lays down the Glacial Fissure. Chaos Storm also on top of Kire, but where's the follow-up? It's V out towards the side, trying to do a little bit of damage. Rat-a-tat-tat being used here, but Dignitas have been able to keep their distance. Frozen Domain coming out now as well. Going to give them that breathing room, and they'll be able to disengage. So many ultimates coming out from ChowGu.
ChowGu, again, from a deficit. Managed to find, like you said, some breathing space. They stall out that tower, but it's only a matter of time before Dignitas are able to kind of overwhelm them. It's about where do they go from here and how do they use their power. The thing that I really wanted to point out was TNT on this Twitch in terms of itemization. The thing that I have a problem with is Blade of the Rune King. I don't think Blade is in a really great spot, especially because we are on 5.23. You know, the double attack speed items are still fairly strong. When you kind of look across at it, it's not as good as it once was, and so I think that really hurts Twitch. See if they're able to turn around, though, as he kind of gets more power into his back pocket. Obviously, he'll work really well with attack speed, so it's about where does he go from here, and if he's able to make these rat-a-tat-tats connect a bit more.
Pyra did mention that he did find the Xiaogu champion select a little bit archaic, maybe even some of the builds to follow there as well as the Blade of the Rune King, as you said, being an issue for TNT. But that's the dragon being taken away here for Xiaogu, so that's their second. Of course, didn't get to find their first, but they've been fighting good fights over across the map. And it was almost like Shifter using that shockwave was like a trigger. It just set Xiaogu off in that last fight, and they blew everything.
I mean, even their trinkets are fairly outdated. You look at Dignitas, you have, you know, the 3 blue trinkets and 2 sweepers. And then on, okay, there they go, he finally changed it out. Xiaogu, they still were sitting on 2 warding trinkets not just a moment ago, so...
We talked a little bit about, I mean, how
much preparation really came into this patch.
Well, how much of a break. Linko said about Xiaogu that we haven't played in quite a while. And a lot of the Chinese LPL teams have been on break. It's been only a couple that they've actually been able to get scrims against, and they've also moved Gaming House as well. So, you know, things to think about, of course, here is Dignitas themselves haven't had oodles of time to prepare, but they seem to comprehend 5.23 just a little bit better.
Certainly looking much stronger, particularly Kirei, although Smitty J in full control of this game, 5-0. Although Kirei, 1-0-5, almost 100% kill participation. Thing is, you know, he takes down Swift. Looking at the bracket next, he's got to go through Spirit.
Oh, can you imagine? There's one after another here as well. That's climbing his ladder, I guess, to being recognized as a true powerhouse jungler here, of course, on the global scale. And this is a great way to start things off. It's Susie, the 3-2 split here for Dignitas, as they are going to work down on towards this top in a turret, and there's really not much that QG can do about it. We saw that TNT wasn't even close enough to impact that one, and all over the board, Digger shoving waves in towards Xiaogu.
Continuing to chip away at these towers. Time is running out for Xiaogu. They really need to make a play to find these picks. Composition does take a little bit of time to get online. They've got a lot of late game talent, but will they be able to get there? Last game ended at 29 minutes, just kind of shy of the average that Dexter talked about, 27 minutes. Starting to close in on that, so Dig got 8 minutes.
Well, Xiaogu just have to hope to not lose a fight against the Barrowed Up team knocking on their door. From there, I guess, you know, the rest is elementary, but they're going to work on towards this mid in a turret here as well. And do note, of course, that Smitty J going to throw out that pillar, just keeping V on his toes.
They have to go.
Trying to put stuff in from the sides there as well. Kirei has to burrow his way away. Jesse's is slowed up. Rat-a-tat-tat being used, and that's the concussive blows able to stun up that Alistar, but yet he gets away. Frozen Domain, of course, helping a little bit there with Smitty trying to get back, and of course, the E coming out from Misfortune, helping out with some slow, and Dignitas can almost disengage whenever they please.
There's a lack of hard engage on the side of Xiaogu. You're effectively looking for the Rune Prison as well as the Braum ultimate. But you talk about such powerful disengage options for Dignitas. You mentioned Trundle in particular, having that Frozen Domain, having those pillars come down. Alistair, he's got the bop, headbutt you away. And frankly, I mean, like you said, Dignitas, they get to pick and choose what fight and where they want to fight it.
That means that their margin of error as well is going to be a little bit more in their favor. They have a bit more freedom about when to take these fights, and Xiaogu as well. Struggle to get a pick, of course, like you said. Lack of engaged potential. Where are these fights going to be had? Are they ever going to be favorable for Xiaogu here? Dignitas getting stronger and stronger. Kirei's found yet another victim. TCT forced to flash over. It's going to be the Glacial Fisher coming out in response here. TCT trying to back away with Smitty J. He has a speed up. He's got that subjugate down on towards Swift as well. He's looking scary. In some way, QG, so they're not the only ones can disengage.
I mean, that said, Braum ultimate is down, as well as TCT's flash. He's going to have to back, so there is a numbers disadvantage. It's not as big because it's the support, but this should give Dignitas a fairly free and low-risk Baron. Now, Swift is still up. He's still nowhere near this. Dig, again, making a pretty solid second Baron call.
It does look like at least that Xiaogu might even just contest this a little bit. Rat-a-tat-tat coming out. There's
out.
a shockwave, beautiful flash from TNT to get out of that, and he's spreading some damage in towards that team fight. Jessis goes deep, and Apollo tries to get a bullet time off, but he's interrupted. He goes down, but V now, he's right at the back, trying to keep himself alive, and he does. And Smitty J might be the next to fall. He's very, very low. 2 down already for Dignitas. It's been a 2 for 2. Jesse's going for the bop here, but it might not be enough to get him out of trouble. He will fall to the death ray. And Smitty J as well. well. He's not long for this world himself. Hoping to catch out towards V. Very, very clever. Rune Prison goes down. Smitty J chases. He gets the kill. Beautiful stuff from Smitty J. And he will finally fall. The fight goes 3 for 4. Dignitas, a little bit shaky.
I stand corrected right there. What should have been a fairly low-risk Baron,
My
but they don't
God.
commit one way or the other. They kind of split their resources, and Xiaogu just collapsed beautifully. Check out this flash from TNT to dodge the shockwave and put himself in a better position to hit more members of Dignitas with his rat-a-tat-tat. From there, Apollo has to flash out. He's still taking the Baron damage, and Doinby does a beautiful flank. You're closed in on a small area in that Baron pit, and Victor's going to run rampant with that Venn diagram.
Just there, you can see him just trying to get the heck out of there. I mean, on paper, it wasn't terrible in terms of numbers for Dignitas. They managed to get some back, and it's all on the back of Smitty J as well, who cleverly just turned this little fight around with a quick bite. Good pillar up there as well, and a couple smacks to the face. Of course, we do see Dignitas, obviously, that was a Baron attempt for them now as well.
Baron attempt number 2, it seems.
Well, I mean, they can't get it every time. That's we can't have too high expectations now as well. Of course, maybe something in the fabric of the old jersey. But the Baron is still available for all intents and purposes here as well. And Dignitas maybe fancy another go. I'll tell you what, I'd be a little bit afraid after what TNT was able to do to them in that last fight.
Xiaogu are making the correct call right here, though. They're applying pressure onto the mid lane and kind of forcing Dignitas to move out of the Baron pit area to protect their mid-tier tower. So I like that thought from Xiaogu to kind of, what's the word? Unpressurize?
Yeah, depressurize.
Relieve pressure.
Yep,
I'm thinking about
too.
like a pressure cooker because I'm hungry.
Oh, actually, we go for some casserole right now. Pressure cook will go down nicely. But Dignitas have other things in mind. Maybe not wanting to finish this game as quickly as the one before it, but still posturing around this Baron. There's such a proclivity for these guys to try and attempt this big objective. But Xiaogu are close enough, to be honest. I mean,
They've got all the ultimates back up.
TNT doesn't have to be that close there. Jesse's does get the double knock up there, but there was no shockwave used there. Looks like Shifter holding that one back for just a moment. V trying to get out as well. Looks like, in fact, QG trying to back off, trying to get the fight that they want in the choke points or something like that. But Dignitas not giving it, pushing back a little bit, and then we'll return maybe towards this mid lane or continue to fight. It's TCT and Swift now. Might be in a little bit of a compromising position. Smitty J has gone in on his own. No, we'll have to back up.
I'm really glad that you pointed out, you know, Xiaogu trying to lure Dignitas into these choke points, make the most out of Victor's AoE damage with the gravitational field, the Chaos Storm, as well as the rat-a-tat-tat, getting that line damage through. So Dignitas, very smart not to fall for it. Likewise, they don't do too bad on their own in choke points with the Shockwave, with the Misfortune Bullet Time.
But I mean, a rat-a-tat-tat towards them all lined up would be filthy in, obviously, literally and the figurative sense. Dignitas still want this. They still, it's like they're programmed on this one. They're really tunnel vision for this Baron.
They're sacrificing a lot of their momentum and their lead to continue to try to push this objective. We'll see if it pays off. They are about halfway through it right now. Swift is in the area.
Yeah, we can see the teleport going to come straight back in from Doinby as well. So this might be a fight. Maybe the one that Xiaogu were looking for. They're going to come forward, and Jesse's is a little bit caught out. He gets the knock-up on towards Swift, but when do Dignitas respond? We did see a shockwave happening off screen. They did get the Baron. The bullet time is going to be coming out, and TCT blocks a heck of a lot of that one. Apollo will fall. The rat-a-tat-tat claiming its targets, and this is it. Xiaogu are going massive. It's a complete and utter clean ace, and they now push forward. That's the team fighting kings for you in the flesh.
And that's the Dignitas Baron call that we're used to seeing. It burns them so badly. They get it, but at what cost? It's going to be their mid-tier tower, possibly more, because again, those inner towers are the weakest that they've ever been right now.
Dignitas spent so long focusing towards that Baron. They've locked Jesse's out. They said, all right, Cal, you know what? I'm going to send you out to pasture. You can just deal with yourself right now while we take this Baron away. And then Xiaogu were on top of it.
And this is exactly what I was talking about. You know, Dignitas, they're sacrificing so much of their momentum and their lead to continue to pressure that objective. They finally tried to make the decisive call. You know, instead of splitting our damage and peeling off of Baron, we're just going to try to commit to it. But they didn't have the resources to get over the wall, and Xiaogu swing themselves almost in equal gold to this game.
Massive, massive fight for them as well. And it doesn't matter what kind of deficit it is. We've seen Xiaogu win from a 10k deficit off the back of a good team fight. TNT has already shown us exactly why he is an AD carry to be feared. It was Apollo got completely and utterly disintegrated. But now Dignitas have to recover from that one as well. Must be reeling. The Baron obviously means nothing to them as they got aced immediately after taking it. So they have to go for something different now.
It gets scary the longer this game goes on. Again, the stronger that V is going to be on that rise, the stronger that TNT is going to be on this Twitch. You have the double Rod of the Ages completed right now, so now it's just a moment of when they stack up, they're at their full power. Likewise, the Archangels hasn't quite come online fully for Rise, but that's going to be another big power momentum.
Of course, the Shifter's damage was going to spike a little bit later, of course, because he went for the Athene's Unholy Grail first. So he has to ramp himself, and now you'd have to be a bit worried about fancying yourself into these fights. Unbreakable coming out from TCT, denying a good percentage of damage coming from Apollo in those fights, and the bullet time maybe not striking as much fear as it could. I mean,
you think about where the gold is located on Dignitas's roster right now. Smitty J sitting 7-2-1, and yeah, he's got his big core items on. This Trundle is very hard to kill, very hard to take down, but, you know, what kind of different game would it be if maybe half of those kills were on Miss Fortune or Shifter's Orianna? Whereas you look at where the gold is located on Xiaogu, it's fairly well even spread.
Yeah, I mean, it's Smitty J. There's obviously a problem with a lot of gold going towards him, but Apollo's caught there. He's got to drop down. TNT just blows him the heck up. Apollo didn't even know what hit him. And now Jesse's might be started on. He does try and get the knock up at Swift. Oh, the burst damage coming back towards that needle. He's quite extreme, but he's still able to survive. And Jesse's is caught in that gravity field. He will again fall down. Shockwave coming in as well, but it's not going to have any follow-up to it. Kirei trying to back away. Shifter choosing to protect himself. Just get out of that one, but Dignitas now, things are getting a little bit dicey for them there. Losing Apollo at Jess is not a good sign.
But this is massive if they're able to get meaningful damage done on the other side of the map. So it's weird because I think cross-mapping is fairly... It's weaker than it really has ever been. I mean, split pushing is a viable option, but in terms of doing it safely, just because deep vision really doesn't exist anymore. But I mean, obviously, he saw everyone there in that team fight, so a good attempted call from Smitty J, but Dignitas, they just need to reorganize themselves. There's no reason that Apollo should be that far forward with the Blade of the Rune completed on TNT. That's always going to be an easy assassination.
And you can see on the minimap as well, the vision for Dignitas in that vicinity, non-existent. Cocky from the man there as well. He'll have to pull up his socks a little bit here, and this is the true test of that new team, is to be rattled, to get shaken, and to bounce back from that as well, and find your feet. Manage to, you know, just adapt to the situation now, as it is. League of Legends, of course, is such a dynamic game, and you need to be adaptable.
We say adaptation, Apollo, trying to make his way back down to that bottom side. He does have Jezus for support, but here comes TNT, looking again for an assassination. Shifter, much quicker on his feet this time around.
Yeah, he didn't want anything to do with that, of course. So Renar's Hurricane now being finished on TNT, so
and it's really
scary.
It's that beautiful ward in the mid lane that actually saved Shifter's life right there, just because he was able to see TNT ramping up the ambush to try to make the assassination play. So good ward location from Dignitas. It's now been swept out.
We talk about the rock-solid players here for Dignitas have been Shifter and Apollo to a certain degree, but is it going to be enough? Will they have the Mavericks to back up? It's going to be the bullet time coming straight across this fight. PCT is knocked back, but his shield still has the intended effect. Smitty J wants to come forward. Kirei coming in, but is there going to be follow-up? If he does get that unburrow, it's an immediate rune prison towards him, and a Glacial Fissure being used there by TCT, but Dignitas still want to come forward. The kill comes out towards Apollo, and Smitty J isn't done there. That Pillar of Frost continuing to be used. Jesse gets to get another pulverize. Oh, it's a miss, and Swift actually manages to get a kill in there somewhere, but Apollo with his second. Smitty J is relentless. He's unstoppable, and he's giving absolutely no quarter here, but look at the turnaround. V and Swift, they might put this on his head. Oh my lord, only Apollo's left. He might get away, but between the two of those, V and Swift able to keep QG in that one.
I'm going to give that entirely to TNT. Xiaogu did such an incredible job keeping that guy alive, able to kite back and forth. And the thing is, in a region that is stacked with 80 carry talent, you think about Uzi, you think about Name, you think about, I mean, Wei Zhao of all people. TNT has constantly been second fiddle to them. Look at this. The Braum shield is beautiful, but he's able to get out of a perfectly placed shockwave from Shifter, and he stays alive this entire time.
Kirei wants to come forward, but it's an immediate rune prison towards him, and then the Glacial Fissure for a disengage if it was required. QG don't quite get that, but as the fight continues down, it's when it starts to turn in their favor.
A beautiful job from V and Swift right here. Again, funneling them into a choke point, being able to lay the AoE damage from Ryze as well as Victor there. And again, TNT finally goes down. That guy was sitting on so little health. He ate two massive cooldowns, the Misfortune bullet time as well as Shifter shockwave.
Dignitas now, do things go from bad to worse? Kirei at least has managed to get himself the red buff there, but my God, it was just one problem after another now for them here in this second match. I mean, if Xiaogu take this one, it's going to go to game 3, and Dignitas, they're looking rattled. They're looking a little bit uncertain here. They need that strong, clear voice to come through to regain some composure for everyone.
They need the shockwave to kill. There needs to be follow-up on it, and someone needs to go down from that. Again, the fact that the bullet time and the shockwave didn't take any member of Xiaogu off of the map, and they continue to chase without those big powers, was pretty much their downfall. Again, Xiaogu doing so good, kiting to where they have a terrain advantage.
That's what they tried to do before with those Baron fights as well. Bring Dignitas back. You can see Dignitas wanted to chase them so far, and QG just love that. They want you to try and come into their territory and fight them and beat them at their own game. But now, again, pushing forward here, things getting a little bit close for comfort between these two teams. We do see maybe Smitty J coming in from off the side here as well, but unlikely that we'll really be able to make a meaningful engagement at this point. Both teams now, a little bit of back and forth, a little bit of mild skirmishing, but no one committing.
Xiaogu do have the advantage positionally that they're closer to the Baron pit. Now, Dignitas sacrificed 2 resources to the Dragon. They will burn it quickly, so they're not going to lose any footing or advantage on the Baron buff there. So, frankly, just a better positional move from Dig.
All right, now a little bit more respect coming into play. Dignitas were able to find some, easier fights. Of course, Xiaogu gave them some things on a platter, but now a little bit harder. Chaos Storm coming out here as well. Might be a fight. This is where Xiaogu want to fight. They want Dignitas to come forward and meet their own makers, as it were, here. Look at them kiting back on it, but there we go. Swift does drop down, and here comes the push back in. Jesse's towards the back. He's low, but he's still alive. Glacial Fisher now catching on towards 3, but Apollo's there. He has the duel out, and the Death Ray is going to claim his life. V manages to get out of the fight somehow. Dawn B is still healthy. Death Ray as well is going to continue to hurt.
Surely this will give them the Baron this time around. Again, these death timers are so punishing at this point in the game. Swift sitting there with 34 seconds.
Xiaogu, do they still fight this one, or maybe try and get something off on the periphery here?
They do have vision, so Doinby can actually approach the area fairly safely, but
still, it's a beaten and battered. Both teams kind of are quite low here. Doinby fancies a pick off on Jesse's, and he might just have it here. PCT trying to go in there with the Winter's Fight, and look at Doinby, lays another death ray down there as well. V's got involved in the fight, and he's going to spread that damage everywhere. This rise is massive, and the Baron, sure enough, goes to Dignitas, but Xiaogu, again, crushed Dignitas in the pit.
Again, Dignitas makes the decisive call. Stay on the Baron. Don't leave the pit. Try to burn it, and it punishes them for the second time this game. Both times Xiaogu have gotten their foot back in, it's been on Dignitas' Baron call.
Yet again, use of this terrain to their advantage is what Xiaogu were just doing so well. Death Ray as well really hurts if it's hitting multiple targets. If TNT can get involved, we saw what happened when he's able to get there. And V spreading the damage in the AoE sense in such close quarters. Dig just fell to pieces.
Doinby also looking much more comfortable on the Victor. This is something that he plays repeatedly in the LPL, something that he was very well known for. Lysandra, not so much. So changing gears up that direction. We've talked about how Xiaogu really kind of look like they're still playing the old patch in terms of their champion select, in terms of how they're playing the game itself. Again, 35 minutes right now.
Yep, longer than that standard game time that was quoted.
And finally taking the gold lead.
Yeah, it's been a long time coming here, and Xiaogu was still behind those 2 turrets, but finally they've eked out that advantage that they're looking for. A team that has said, we have said, I guess, that have a rough early game or put themselves into a rough early game, but, King of Team Fights is not a term that's used too loosely, I think, with these guys. They're absolutely living up to that name right now, and that rise as well. Let's think of the scaling here, Frosk. It's going to be very, very scary for Xiaogu as the game continues.
Likewise, TNT is now sitting on his 3 items. He has the crit available to him in the Infinity Edge, as well as kind of 2 attack speed and the lifesteal item from the Hurricane, as well as the Blade of the Rune King. So Twitch is up and online. If he gets good, solid line damage, likewise the Braum doing great work against the bullet time with his Unbreakable.
3 Zhonya's Hourglasses as well for Xiaogu as well. So they are expecting some of that AoE damage to come through. Of course, bullet time and shockwave as it were. So what better thing to bring in towards the fight. And again, maybe Xiaogu now feeling a little bit more confident about coming forward and fighting, maybe even fighting in Dignitas' territory here, as there's got to be a feeling for them that they're starting to really find their stride.
I like that you have kind of focused on this idea that Dignitas, they're being lured forward. Again, we talked about how Dignitas, they get to choose when and where they fight. They have all the disengage potential, and it's been kind of 3 times in a row that Dignitas have walked into certain death of Xiaogu just kind of luring them back, continuing to whittle away at them.
Giving them the fight. Dignitas are, and some teams like this, especially maybe the less teams that have been locked together, less long, God, English is hard, as maybe they just keep fighting, thinking that's the way that they can get back into the game, or that's the way to sort of close things out eventually. Just keep coming forward, and Xiaogu, maybe, Dignitas didn't expect them to be so clever like that. Maybe when they saw them, they said, well, this just looks like a team that wants to fight all the time. Let's just give it to them back and see how it goes. But maybe a little bit more brains behind the machine. That is Xiaogu. With there it is that inhibitor turret. So Dignitas is still coming forward here. Xiaogu might want to turn this around, but they should be able to clear the gap and get away. Swift is chasing off towards the side here, though. He's fancying himself a target.
We did have the teleport, like you said, coming in for V, so SmittyJ does have his TP up and available. Here we go.
The re-engage comes in. Kirei looking for an Unburrow. He doesn't get it. He's actually above ground, and he's stunned up, of course. Gravity Field is forcing his flash out. Rat-a-tat-tat coming through. It's a one-man shockwave. That's it. It's not going to be enough for Dignitas, and they keep playing it like that. SmittyJ has to flash over the wall, and TCT is already on top of him. Another clean ace. Chalku are all over the teamfight aspect, and you can see the look there on SmittyJ's face. He knows he messed up, and Dignitas know they messed up. Chalku going for the throat.
And Dignitas, this is why you do not face Chalgu into the late game. There was no reason they should have gotten here. Both games have gotten a substantial lead in that early game, but indecisive or incorrect calls in the mid game allow Chalgu to get their footing back in it. Ooh, is this going to be the game for them? Look at these death timers.
Yep. I mean, they're above 20-odd seconds here as well. Chalku looking for the win here. They want it, and they want it more than Dignitas, especially in this game number 2. And they, ladies and gentlemen, are going to make it a game 3. The first game of the weekend, and it's going to be a big one. That Nexus will fall, and there's nothing that Dignitas can do. GG!
Why are you facing the kings of team fighting in a 5v5 scenario? Dignitas, they had all of the tools, they had all of the options. They could have chosen, we're fighting here, we're not fighting at all. And they just ran headfirst into disaster.
Insane stuff here. Dignitas thinking that, or maybe having the audacity to think that they could take Chalku at this particular play style. But our friends from China have showed up here in game number 2. And, you know, a stunned silence fell over the crowd after that first game. And Chalku maybe realizing they might be going home, but not the case this time. They've made it towards that game 3 as well. Now, of course, if you're Dignitas, you're starting to sweat a little bit more yourself.
Big things that I want to kind of point out, like obviously you have the Baron calls not working out for Dignitas both times in a row. They just sacrifice so much in return to try to get it available to them. The voice of God just spoke to me.
Well, it's well loud. I think it's got my headset turned up. I mean, look, yeah, we could go on about this for a while, I think, as well. Baron, bad. That's all I'm going to say if you're Dignitas. We're going to pass it over to our experts who might be able to elucidate on that point more than I could. Gentlemen.
No, I think that's it. No, I'm pretty sure, yeah, just taking unnecessary Barons is bad. I'm pretty sure that's just a summary of game number 2.
I feel like if we start from the beginning, I feel the draft was heavily in favor of Dignitas.
Yeah.
But then again, QG had the stronger early game, but they solved this with this beautiful lane swap. They ended up ahead, and they played out the game correctly because in the mid-game, the magic resistance would be so efficient. They had, of course, the Hex Drinker, they had the Aegis, the Spirit Visage, and it's become so hard for Ryze and Victor to do anything. But if you delay the game until they both get Void Staff, good luck. Good luck.
Yeah, you saw the 2 Void Staffs, and yeah, like you said, I mean, at that point, they were dealing a lot of damage to anyone, especially, of course, MF, who wasn't going to have the luxury of building all that magic resist.
Yeah, and they didn't have really any way to interrupt her. We talked about the Trundle not being picked up, and they went with the Braum instead. But as long as they were able to hold off an attempt to kill off the Twitch, you know, there wasn't really a lot of armor being built because everyone stacked the MR, and they kept him alive. They just kept body blocking right in front of him. It's like I'm watching Harry Potter.
Yeah, I mean, you think of, if you can think back to the last couple of team fights, that is exactly what happened. And even that one time where Misfortune was able to get rid of the Twitch right away, it was like, okay, well, big deal. Like, if you still can't kill the Ryze and the Victor with your ultimate together, like, they're just going to come for you, and you're going to die eventually, and they're going to be able to last out the team fight.
Yeah, I mean, the gameplay was, like, really good. Like Yamato said already, you solve the problems, all the problems by lane swap. But if you still get to late game where Ryze has like 3 items, it's over. The thing is, you have to snowball the game into like victory before Ryze gets strong. But Ryze was just like doing so much damage in these team fights.
It was ridiculous.
And he doesn't even die. That's the biggest problem.
Yeah.
And it's like there was so many things going on for Dignitas that were going well. I think the Baron was the correct call, but the lack of vision was the problem. Because in this stage of the game, Ryze is going to start to do well against the Trundle. The win condition is Baron and the fact that they are stronger in 5v5s. But they needed to control the vision around the blue side jungle, and with that in mind, they didn't. And they got the concave fight around the Baron pit, beautiful Twitch flash away from the Orianna ults, and then it's very, very hard to come back from that. And that happened twice.
Yeah, I mean, you saw the first one, you were like, oh, okay, here we go, like they're back, and then you see the second one, and it's like, okay, it's probably over then. QG was able to close it out. Well, ladies and gentlemen, at least we have a match on our hands. It is 1-1 now. We'll see. Can Dignitas pull back? You know, they won that first game. They looked really good in game 1. We'll see if they can come back in game 3 after this break.